Hello, I'm Hank, and I LARP. What do you mean? Oh, sorry, wrong channel. So what book am I relating to what whiskey? Well, today I have Montana Canadian Whiskey Devil's Brigade. This is supposed to be, all reviews, I haven't tried it yet, the best Montana whiskey out there. Well, we'll see if it's any good today. And what am I relating it to? Well, this one's an easy one. Some of these relations might stretch the boundaries of relations a little bit. This one, these two are matched. So, am I reading, what book am I doing? I am doing, oh God, I'm getting the light ring in there. I hate the light ring. The Force. The Force by Saul David. Legendary Special Ops Unit and World War II's Mission Impossible. So this book is The Force, is about the 1st Special Service Force, FSSF, which is the granddaddy to Special Forces and the Canadian Special Operations Regiment, or CSOR. It was formed in 1942 with a lot of backing and a lot of input from Winston Churchill. It's kind of weird. He's British, but this force is mainly made up of Americans and Canadians, although there are some Brits in there. So what's this book about? Well, this book isn't an action book. I'm going to tell you that right now. If I had to do a review, I'd say this is more of a biography of a unit. And this unit is awesome. So why is this cool to me? Well, I'm going to get to that here in a second. Let me just tell you what the book's about. The book is a detailed biography of this unit, the first inter-service special elite force ever put together. So this isn't just Americans. It's Americans and Canadians, like I said, with Brits. Okay, this book's about moving on from how they were, the concept of the force, how it was put together, from selection to formation to training, and off to their first missions that they had to go on. This book talks about a lot about unit size, unit makeup. If you're really, really into the military, unit structure, this book is for you. Talks about, and then it goes on to their main action at the Magnano Gap. Probably butchered that. I'm not Italian, but it's south of Monte Cassino, and I know that one. It was formed with a lot of input from, again, Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who wanted the Canadians included. He wanted this. He wasn't the only one, but he's kind of the catalyst that kept this thing going. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but there was a time when this force was designed for something that didn't pan out, and they were about to throw it in the trash, and he said, nope, we need these guys. So, and pretty smart that he did that. But it was first thought up. Okay, let's go into the name real quick. It's a mouthful. First Special Service Force. Why was it named that? Well, the Army, U.S. Army, has a unit called Special Services, and that's an entertainment branch, and they did this on purpose. They wanted the names to be really similar. I heard the Special Service Force, and I'd heard of Special Service, and I was like, what's so great about these guys? I thought they were either in forestry, or I thought they were part of the entertainment thing. So the name was to keep it secret, sort of like when the British made tanks, they were called tanks to be considered as, they thought that people would look at, the spies would see tanks and think they were doing water tanks, something like that, not actual steel fighting, shooting tanks. But so the name was for secrecy, and it worked, but it's still really cool. But that's why we have Devil's Brigade, because they were too good to be called FSSF without some really cool nickname. They were originally designed through what is called Project Plough, P-L-O-U-G-H, not plow. When I first heard, so you'll notice it's on my iPad again, audiobook. Sorry for traditionalists. I love the audiobook, but plow. It's not the horse plow, it's plow, snow plow, European plow. But what it was designed for was Winston Churchill and the group the team that developed this wanted this force, wanted a really special unit who would get on these snow machines. Boy, they were big on these snow machines. And go into Norway and take out Nazi hydroelectric plants that were in Norway. That didn't end up happening. Through a bunch of mismanagement or management and the changes in the war, the force was, it was just inconceivable that they were ever going to get into Norway to take these plants out. And the force was almost dissolved, like I said before. But Winston Churchill said, nope, we can still use these guys. So why would he say we can still use these guys? Okay, so who were they? That answers the question, is to find out who these guys were. They are known as Forcemen. One word, Forcemen. I heard this in the audiobook, and I thought they said horsemen for a while. No, they're not like our Green Beret guys who went over 12 strong. No, these are Forcemen. This unit was purposely designed and hand-picked people who were outdoorsmen, woodsmen. There were lumberjacks, hunters, miners, explorers, mountaineers, skiers. Canadians were, a lot of the Canadians who came over were excellent skiers because, again, originally this force was brought together to attack in Norway during the winter. What was the makeup of these guys? Well, they were individuals. They were ruffians. They were fighters. They were extremely fit. These are people who have been in the outdoors working by themselves for, most of them came from other units, but before they had gone in the military, they climbed mountains. There were some guys who climbed mountains all the time. So they were extremely fit. They knew how to work on their own. They knew how to be out in the woods. They knew how to be in hazardous climates. They were tough. They were really, really tough. Made up of all these hard men. They had this really hard training in Arctic, cold, freezing conditions. The quotes from the book is they fought everybody. They'd go around the bars and pick fights, and they fought everybody. And they also went down to Butte, which is a mining town here. And I guess that's the only place that anybody ever whooped them, was they had some miners down there. When I talk about the Ruffins, when they put this force together, it's Hollywood stuff. They didn't like a lot of people. When the Canadians first came in, there was a lot of spitting back and forth, manning up to each other. The Americans got paid more than the Canadians. The Canadians obviously felt disrespected by that. They'd fight each other. They'd go to town, fight everybody. But slowly over time, like any elite unit, I mean, this became the model. Bring all these tough guys together, and by the end, boy, they were inseparable. And where did they go? Well, they went to where I am, Helena, Montana. This is the really cool part. This is why I'm all excited about this, and this is why this really relates well. They trained here, and they trained here because this is a cold environment that had mountains, but also flat areas to do parachuting, because they're a airborne regiment, is what this service is. They're elite special forces in every sense of every movie you've ever watched. These are those guys. The temperatures here when they were training, that the book gets into how they trained in negative 50-degree temperatures. And one of the really, really neat things for me is they talk about in the book that they would constantly run up this hill called Muscle Mountain, similar to what, if you've ever watched Band of Brothers, Kirahi, the same kind of hill. And during a training exercise that I went through, I actually ran up Muscle Mountain. I stood in the same place that they did. That is pretty neat. They were always, when they marched at 140 steps a minute, where average infantry maxed out at usually 120, unless they were force marching. The Forcemen had to do it 140 everywhere. If they weren't in formation, they were running. They were climbing. They were always working. These guys the book kind of describes it as a non-stop physical exercise, what their training was. They also learn. So everybody thinks nowadays that, SEALs, Green Berets, everything, everybody knows hand-to-hand combat really well. And that's not so much the case. Special forces these days, it's more mind, it's more body, it's integrating weapons and thought and technologies and force multipliers together to accomplish the mission. These guys, the Forcemen, were, again, what you think of when you think of an elite special forces operator in the military. These guys trained with knives. They trained sneaking up on people. And in fact, I was going to get into it a little later, but on the bottle of this Devil's Brigade, I kind of can't really see it up here, is a symbol called there's a knife there. It says V42. That was their, whereas the British commandos used the Fairbairn Sykes commando knife, these guys used the V42 trench knife, which was very similar. One thing they learned, they trained a lot with explosives. They trained up by Libby, Montana. They had liked to overuse explosives. One blast blew out a bunch of windows in town. They started a forest fire once, and one of the neatest stories is a true story that you would think it was just plain Hollywood, but they were training with dynamite, and they threw a stick of dynamite and one that was lit, and a dog retrieved it and brought it back to them. And one very calm sergeant took it out of the dog's mouth, threw it, and it blew up. It had seconds, milliseconds. If the fuse would have been any shorter, the dog and a couple of the guys probably would have been gonzo. But that's the kind of men these guys were. And you get a group of men like that, they have to be led by somebody special. And they were led by one of probably the best leaders that we had in World War II, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Frederick. The book gets into the kind of the leadership structure. It talks a lot about the officers, and some were good, some weren't. Even though they were fit, strong men, some of them didn't show great courage, some of them didn't show great fortitude, but some of them, like Colonel Robert Frederick, were some of the best ever known. In fact, I got it here. He was the most shot general in the entire war. He led from the front. So this is I'll leave a link to a lot of this below, but this is from a website regarding this. When Prime Minister Winston Churchill received word from General Eisenhower that La Defense a success, he declared, if we had a dozen men like him, Colonel Frederick, we could have smashed Hitler in 1942. He's the greatest fighting general of all time. All time, not just World War II. That's crazy. So, La Defensa, what's that? Okay, I'm going to get into that. I know, I'm not chronological thing, but I want to get to the whiskey. In fact, I should probably open this and get to it right now. So let's do that. Let's open this whiskey. I have not opened it. I have not tried it. Got my Kershaw opening knife here. I swear, I have a ton of knives because I like to collect them. I like knives. This one gets used more than any other because this is my utility box cutter. There's got to be a trick to this. Every one of these bottles, I swear, is different. This is something I should probably cut out, but I know when I watch YouTube videos, it's always fun watching people struggle with simple stuff on camera. And there we go. All right. I think I got it. Kept my V42 symbol intact here. That's even cool. Oh, wow. Nope. Oh, wow. Okay. That was a struggle. Here we go. So this whiskey, and I'll get into it. So we talked about how the Americans and Canadians fought together. Well, this whiskey is a blend of 60% American whiskey, 40% Canadian whiskey, which was basically the makeup of the unit. Also put a link below to this about the website to the Devil's Brigade whiskey. It's distilled in Montana, in Ennis, Montana, actually not very far from me. It's 60% American, 40% Canadian, and the V42 knife that we talked about, of course this whiskey's, I should have gotten into this earlier, the whiskey is blended and made to honor these guys. So the spirit offers 42% ABV to honor the knife. It's kind of a cool way. And it says, blend of whiskeys is our way of honoring the bravery and valor of these men who fought in World War II with distinction, and boy, did they. For the roughly 1,800 men 600 of them or so were sent to La Defensa, and I'm going to get into that right now. Just a couple hundred of them really fought up that mountain. They have thousands of medals. It's absolutely insane what they did. So the main fight that this book sort of culminates, the peak of the book is the fight for Monte la Defensa, which is in Italy. Germans are up on top. They had a really, about 3,000 men, a really tough unit. They decided to go what they call in the book the back door. They, at night, scaled basically a sheer cliff with 60-pound rucks to get up this mountain to try to come in from behind. And this is the first battle where they earn their name. The Devil's Brigade comes from actually being called the Black Devils because they were the first to really just, probably not the first, but they were known for painting their faces really dark, and they'd sneak up. And this is where it started at La Defensa. There was a few of the guys who snuck through the bushes, came up behind some sentries and Germans, and took them out with their V42 knives. And later on, they would do that and leave playing cards on the enemy that they fought, and that's how they got to be known as the Black Devils and became known as the Devil's Brigade. So they took this mountain and the mountaintop, the peak, and after they took this peak, they got to be a little R&R where they were given 2 ounces of whiskey, their morale boost, which really lends to my channel well. Then they end up having to take the other peak, peaks taken. And as the book alludes, they have some other missions. Now, this unit only fought for about a year. From a December to they were formed in 1942. They were disbanded in 1944, December 1944. But they were only in combat about a year before the powers that be said that this great unit, they didn't have a purpose for it. Kind of goes into some Army weird stuff there because there's a microcosm of this. Earlier, before they go to Italy, they're training in Virginia. I believe it was Virginia. I might be wrong about that, but they're training in Virginia. And when they're training, they have to take this PT test, and every Forceman blew the PT test out of the water. They rewrote the standards. And the Army didn't know what to do with them. They thought, these guys are machines. We can't put them with... The Army literally moved them on because they didn't know what to do with them. And it's kind of the same thing happened with the whole unit at the end. They didn't know what to do with them, so they disbanded them. Boy, it's kind of, tough deal. You'd think you could use a force like this. But they're not forgotten. And again, this is why I'm doing this here in Helena. Oh, God, I should take a drink of this. Hold on. So Canadian American whiskey. They're not forgotten. We killed here for not. Ooh, that's got a little bit of pepper going up the nose. Getting some floral hints off there. Light vanilla caramel. Lot of floral. Vanilla on the top. Vanilla on the top. Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I'm kind of all over the place on this. I want to drink this whiskey really bad. I want to get into how but this story is so neat to me because, again, I tread some of the same ground. War armor going up some of the places they did. It's just really, really neat. And we have a big memorial here in Helena. I'll try to throw in some pictures of that. Well deserved for these guys. And they were respected by other units too. 3rd Infantry Division, one of the commanders from, I believe it was a commander, either a commander or officer stated, who fought with the FSSF, stated that these were the best damn fighters that ever lived. And that was, the 3rd Infantry Division was no slouch. So for them to say that was really, really neat. They were a tight-knit unit. Again, when they started, they didn't like each other. By the end, here's a story that'll solidify how close they were. So while they were training here in Helena, a lot of the troopers fell in love with the area. They loved the area. Some of them married girls here, found girls here, came back to them. And two of the main guys, in the book. One of them who was busted down twice, but was such a good soldier they wouldn't get rid of him, was Joe Glass, who lived here along with his friend Mark Radcliffe. And they were both in the unit. They served together. They came back and lived here. And at the ages of 94 and 92 years old, these two gentlemen, I believe it was in 2012 or 2014, passed away within 12 hours of each other. I mean, that's the stuff you only get when you're brothers. And it's really neat that they did that. So they both lived in Helena. They were the last members of the First Special Service Force to be from Montana. They passed away here. There's still some around in other areas. But it's really, really neat that this story comes from my area, and this unit, again, the grandfather to our modern special forces. A lot of the stuff that this unit, you think it's any military unit today, they have a basic doctrine. Of course, everybody's always learning, but they have a basic doctrine of how to do things. Well, these guys kind of wrote the book. And, well, with that book, we have whiskey, because this is Whiskey Book, and I'm now going to get into this whiskey. I should have got into this when I started, but I was so excited. I'm sorry. Again, getting kind of a hay smell too. All right, so I got hay, little floral. It's light. Yeah. Wow, in a way, this reminds me of Buffalo Trace a little bit. Definitely hay down here at the edge. But vanilla and caramel as I smell up close. All right, here we go. You know, when I drank this, being a, not a super famous whiskey or anything right now, I thought it would be, I'd say, it's rough around the edges like the guys who train, but actually this is pretty good. It does. It reminds me a lot of Buffalo Trace. Almost even more Eagle Rare, like a little bit better than. Definitely getting some spice on the tongue. Rolls down. It's viscous. It's more viscous than I would think. And you can look in the glass. You can kind of see. I get that. I need to change my lighting, but there's oil. There's oils running down the side of the glass, which is usually a good sign that this is going to be a good viscous whiskey or bourbon that coats the mouth. And this one definitely coats the mouth. In fact, I'm still getting the finish, which that's crazy. I had a Four Roses single barrel not too long ago, and I drank that, and it took like 5 seconds, and that was gone. Spice on the tongue, but light spice, not harsh spice. There's no burn. A little bit of, it's alcohol, but it doesn't hit you like a high proof bourbon or anything. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. I got something rolling down the back of my tongue, a flavor off this. I can't quite put my. I can put my tongue on it. I can't quite figure it out. It's actually really good. It's a little florally, not nutty at all. Right there in the middle of the tongue, I get there's a little funk of something. I can't quite. It's almost corn, but it's not quite a corn. But then it sits there. It's there for a second. It feels like I'm out in the field, and back combining, and get some chaff blown in my face, and then you chew on it. You're like, ah. But this is actually not. Yeah, this is good, really good. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that. This is The Force by Saul David, and a book that highlights the biography of the making, the training, the unit cohesion of the FSSF, First Special Service Force, the Devil's Brigade. And to go with the Devil's Brigade book, well, the Force book, we have Devil's Brigade Whiskey, which is actually really, really good. And I want to thank you for listening, and See you next time.